I think sometimes we view pride wrong. In other words, we view pride as just that arrogance that some people have. And some people are just arrogant people, right? They're aloof. They somehow think they're better than everybody else. And it's very visible in their response and their reaction and the way they communicate. They're just a proud person. It becomes very, very obvious to everyone. But pride is so much more than just aloofness. And as I've begun to study and really understand the subject of pride, I find more and more the roots of pride in my own life. And I think most of you would agree with this. I'll just make a blanket statement since I'm using myself as an example. I'm not a proud, arrogant person. I'm not that. I don't need my name splashed all over, anything. It's not about me. I'm kind of a quiet, reserved person. And yet, as we study what pride really is, the roots of pride can creep itself into every one of our lives in so many different ways. And I think we do pride a disservice if we sit there and go, well, that's not me. I'm not proud. The fact of dismissing pride and not looking at it may in and of itself be a problem. And so I want to look at really what pride is and how it works and how it creeps into our lives. Jesus saw it as a problem in this particular account. He was witnessing it, and so he wanted to address it, and he wanted to talk about it. And so I think we should talk about it for a little bit of time that we have here today. Don't turn there, but the Bible tells us in Psalm 51, verse 17, God desires what? A broken and contrite heart. God's looking for someone that comes with a broken heart, not proud, not self-made, not I got it together, not I don't need help. But Brother Bob, in his prayer this morning, as our deacon of the day, talked about the pride we have because we don't even want to share sometimes what we're going through or the problems that we're dealing with, or we don't want people to think we have a weak spot or an issue or something we need help with. We like to put the veneer up that we have it all together. Pride shows itself in so many different ways. Pride began, I think we would agree, we first saw pride in the Garden of Eden. As the serpent comes to Adam and Eve, and as the serpent comes to Eve first and then Adam, the serpent will converse with both of them there in the whole ordeal of giving them that temptation, of giving them the temptation of what they should have, what they should want. He talks to Eve about that. Eve converses with Adam about that. The serpent comes and says, you'll be what? You'll be as wise as God. You'll have more than you have right now. It'll be better than it is right now. I don't know about you, but I think you and I look at that and say, man, they had it all, right? Things were great in the Garden of Eden. No sin, no disease, no problems, no thorns, no weeds, no bickering, no fighting, no issues. They didn't have any problems. When we first come to Adam and Eve, they're not dealing with kids and their problems. They don't have in-laws. They don't have neighbors. There's no Republicans and Democrats. They're not dealing with any issue. Things are great. Things are perfect. It is exactly the way God designed it to be. They have fellowship, personal fellowship with God, and everything's great. Adam and Eve are living the ideal, perfect life. And the serpent comes along and says, yeah, but you can have more. Better. There's more out there. Your eyes will be open. You'll see what God sees. Yeah, sure enough, they're going to see. They're going to see things they never counted on. They're going to be introduced to all kinds of things because of sin. A relationship with God is broken. They begin to die. The aging process begins. They'll have all kinds of problems. I mean, look at the problems they had with their kids. One killed the other. First generation of children. And there's already murder between siblings. Talk about problems. What was it that the serpent came along and tempted them with? Well, the sin would be pride. You can have more. You can have better. How does pride affect my life? I wrote down a few quick things. I probably have used these before if you've been around, but where is there pride in my life? Maybe I have a problem where I think that I'm better than others, or I have it together and everybody else is a mess. Maybe that is a problem. And that becomes obvious. I think the Holy Spirit would show us that. If we're a believer in Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit's going to show us your perspective is wrong. That's a real problem. But to go to another level, right, or to really begin to understand how pride begins to come into our lives, I believe we have pride when we guard our time as more valuable than other people's time. We begin to value what don't bother me. I don't want to be interrupted. I don't have time to help with that. I don't have time to do that. My time is more valuable than other people's time. It's the pride begins to grow in our lives. Maybe number two, I defend my rights. I have a right to this. I ought to be happy. I ought to have what I want. I deserve that promotion. I have a right to that. You can't tell me I can't. Pride begins to grow in our lives as we defend what we think is our right and the hill that we're willing to defend and die on if necessary to keep what we think is so important. The third one I wrote down, the pride comes out when we're forcing our opinions. Listen, you have to listen to what I say. I need to share what's on my mind. I think it's important that they hear what I think about this. I have to tell them. They need to hear it. I have to share it. You have to listen to it. We begin to force our opinions. And the fourth one I wrote down is we begin to push our will. Our will. No, this is the way we're going to do it. I don't care what you think. I don't care what your idea is. We're going to do it my way. We're going to do it this way. That's the way I do it. That's the way I've always done it. You can't change it. Pride begins to get us to the point that we begin to put down those anchors in our lives. We won't change even if it hurts somebody. We won't fix it even if it's a problem. I think in our marriage, in marriages, pride shows itself in I have to win the argument, right? I have to prove I'm right. I have to show you that I was right on that and you were wrong on that. I have to prove that in the Tupperware cabinet, the lids are supposed to be with the bowl, not separate from the bowl. Not that I've ever argued that. We become very adamant about these little things that cause divisions and fights and arguments and problems and tension because we think it's important. It's what we do. It's how we do it. We think that's the right way. It always has been that way. We hold on to what we think is so important. Let's go back. Jesus is watching the room. And as he's watching the room, certain people are like, I'm sitting up here. And Jesus is saying, you're choosing the best seats or the best position or the chiefest rooms because you think somehow you're more important than other people. How much better, Jesus goes on to, why don't you sit in the back and let the master of the wedding, let the chief of the wedding, let the wedding coordinator, if you will, or the family involved in the wedding, let them come to you and say, no, 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 we don't want you sitting back here. We have a seat for you up here. How much better is that than taking the front seat and them coming to you and saying, sorry, this is reserved for grandma. Go find a seat back there somewhere. Well, they thought they were more important. They thought they deserved something better than that. I think we often struggle not with the arrogant, boastful pride that is easily discernible. We deal more often with a silent pride, our independence, a masked pride. We think this is what we are, this is who we are, we're not changing it. Jesus was concerned about the pride in their lives. We become self-absorbed where we don't see other people's needs, what other people are going through, other people's problems. I shared that a couple weeks ago, and this is part of Pastor Wes's philosophy of ministry. And some pastors would disagree with this. But if you come to me with a problem or a situation, I am likely to try to get some perspective of how many people are going through a similar problem. I think it does us good to know that we are not alone. There are many people going through a problem very similar to this. There are many ways that we can deal with it. I think it is wrong when we sit there and really believe we're the only one going through this problem. No one has it as bad as I do. No one can imagine how bad this situation is. To try to one-up someone that things are worse for me than they are for you. I think that's a wrong perspective. And so to be able to take the selfishness off of me and to be able to see maybe what someone else is dealing with, what someone else is going through, what someone else is the burdens that they're carrying, often silently, often without maybe saying anything. But to see the struggle that they're dealing with and the problem that they're dealing with. Tell you what, if you have it all together, let me know so I can refer people to you so they can see how it's done. Because most of us, the reality is there's something we're struggling with. There's something that's a little chaotic in our lives. There's something that's a problem. There's something that, if we let it, can keep us awake at night. We can toss and turn. We're struggling with. There's a problem. There's a situation. It may not be exactly like yours, but it's probably very similar to someone else's. We become self-righteous in that we think we're pretty good. We think we got it. Why can't everyone else follow God the way we do? And that was the problem of the Pharisees, right? Jesus called them hypocrites. Because the Pharisees thought they had it together. They had it figured out. They were following the law to the T. Even to the point that if Jesus healed someone on the Sabbath, they condemned it. Because keeping the Sabbath was more important than the needs of the hurting person. And Jesus said, "Thou hypocrites." No. We become self-righteous. We become self-centered. We're concerned about everything. How's this going to affect me? How does this touch my life? What about me in this situation? We become self-seeking, where we're looking to advance myself. That's really a core ingredient of America today, right? How do you promote yourself? Sell yourself. Advance yourself. It's often at the expense of other people. It's often running over other people's backs to get to where you want to be. We become self-seeking. And we become self-serving, where we expect others to cater to us, to our problems, to our needs, to what we want, to what we think we should have.